All right, the audience is filing in. Everyone, I'm just going to give it another minute for everybody to get in and settled, and then we will begin. All right, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest AMA New York event, How to Get a Job in Marketing Today. And as marketers, boy, this is a subject close to our heart. We're lucky to have a great panel here, and we're going to have a great discussion. As always, I encourage people to participate. You can put questions into the chat, and we will open up speakers towards the end so we can all talk as well. Let me begin by letting this amazing panel introduce themselves. All people whom I've known, some of you for many years, and I appreciate you joining us and sharing your expertise with marketers. So let's start off. Karen, since I see you on my screen right now, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself quickly?
Hello, I am Karen Danziger. I'm a managing partner at Kohler Search Partners, which is a boutique search firm that specializes really in information and media companies. Marketing is a subset of what we do, and a pretty good subset at that. And it's all really content organizations, so it can be associations, media companies, news organizations, and a span of marketing roles that cover audience branding and event marketing, because events are a big part of the media sector right now.
Thank you. All right, Matt.
Hi, everyone. Matt Schwartz. I am a 30-year retained executive search veteran. Started with a firm focusing on transitioning classically trained marketers to non-traditional businesses. Then went over to the global consumer practice at Heidrick and Struggles, where I was a principal for 4 years, and then started my own firm specializing in transformational talent, with the evolution of lots of new skill sets, especially around marketing. Did that for had my firm for over 15 years, and 4 years ago joined HIEC, which is a global retained search firm based here in New York, and work a combination of both consumer practice and software and technology, with specialties in functional areas in the C-suite, as well as marketing, sales, general management. Thanks.
Thanks for having. Thanks for being here, Matt. Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Zay, and I have 16 years in the sector of marketing services on the agency side in both New York and London. And then about 20 years ago, joined the family business, which is a retained executive search firm focused solely on the discipline of marketing. And over time have assumed leadership of that firm. We really work across the entire spectrum. I would say we do from VP, SVP, EVP roles, creative directors, head of brand, head of strategy, head of media, head of marketing, you name it. So that's sort of, we're deep and long on the topic of marketing, and happy to be here.
Thank you. And heading and going in-house, representing the corporate side, Ashley.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Shea, and I am a corporate recruiter with Danone. If you are unfamiliar with that name, I'm representing my brand, one of our brands today on my shirt, Silk. So some of our brands include Silk, Dannon Yogurt, Light and Fit, Activia. Hopefully you have some of those actually sitting in your refrigerator as we speak. But been recruiting for Danone for the past 2 years, recruiting in general for the last 8. We have headquarters locations in White Plains, New York, along with Broomfield, Colorado. And for the roles that I recruit in marketing, they span everywhere from brand, so representing one of our brands like Silk, through roles in our marketing center of excellence, like digital marketing, integrated marketing, and spanning the range from entry level all the way up to that C-suite. So excited to be here and talk with all of you today.
Well, so let's start off with just a little bit of assessment of the market right now. What is the state of the market? Is the job market good? Is the job market tight? Is it benefiting? Are you seeing a lot of open roles, more roles than candidates, or more candidates than roles? Anybody feel free to jump in. Elizabeth.
I'll start. It's getting better. It's warming up. Last year, so I've been recruiting and marketing for 20 years. Last year was the worst year I've ever seen in the sector of marketing. There was a couple things going on. There was a yay or nay recession. Nobody knew. So then hiring froze. And when they went looking for margin, it was easy to kind of reduce marketers and marketing spend. And then I think there was a lot of overhiring in every function after COVID, but in particular marketing. So the good news is it's better. We're happy that it's not last year.
Yeah, I definitely second that. It's been a bit slower. It seems like people are taking a wait and see attitude, whether it's interest rates, the election, the good news is if they are focused on an opportunity, it's definitely the more measurable opportunities, ones that are quantifiable and they can really, see a return on their investment in regard to the marketing activities.
I would echo both of those entirely. The drop last year was really across many categories, not just marketing, so we shouldn't feel so bad. But it is really picking up. We can experience 5 requests, and we're retained search as well, which is a hefty fee for clients, as you may know, and 5 requests for a marketing professional in a month, which is really high, and it's across the board in terms of brand, product growth, etc.
2 things I want to get go a little deeper on. Are there certain areas, not of marketing, but certain industries, certain categories that are hotter than others, and are there some that are colder than others? So, for example, ad tech for a while was all the rage, then it kind of cooled, then financial services became hot. What's hot now? Where are you seeing a lot of action?
I think where Matt kind of tipped to it, anything that's measurable, certainly around, if you think about marketing and there's brand, product, and growth marketing, definitely into growth, and now with AI and technology. And so measurable marketing, accountable marketing is still very much on the forefront of what people are thinking about.
Well, let's unpack that more, because Matt mentioned measurable. You're saying measurable. What does that mean to a marketer? Is that just bottom of the funnel? Growth marketing, it was called for a while, but
Right.
more or less digital e-commerce kinds of marketing. What is that?
I think it really matters which sector you're talking about, consumer versus B2B, where we do a lot in B2B. And it's whether the person is really considered driving the business forward, as you say, return on investment, or a support to sales, or other disciplines. In B2B, sometimes it is considered just support. And that's, of course, not as good.
So, Matt, what does that mean to you when you say measurable roles?
Yeah. So again, to tag on to what Karen just said, first of all, we have to understand, is the company a marketing-driven company or a sales-driven organization? And that's really going to determine what the marketing output looks like. Historically, years ago, there was a huge focus on brand. Now consumers are shaping the brand more and more, or companies are able to drive their brand through things, like social media, where it's very different than putting out, typical ad campaigns. If people are putting out ad campaigns on social, it's immediately, ignored, because they know it's kind of a shill there. So that's that. And then from a measurable standpoint, look at like enterprise software, anywhere where there's a subscription element and you can drive very specific activities to gain new customers and ongoing relationships, that's really going to be something that's looked on favorably, and the area where I know our clients are looking most heavily.
So are there certain then very specific certifications or skills that on a resume indicate to you that this is a candidate that knows how to drive sales, drive value? For example, are you looking for people who have, like, I don't know, experience with Marketo or Salesforce, or what are the things that to you indicate like, okay, this is the person who drives growth?
That really depends on the company. If they believe in having a marketing automation service like a Marketo or an Eloqua, that's one thing. If they live and die by Salesforce, that typically means they're more of a sales-driven organization. So those are kind of key indicators. But I think when you ask, what are we looking for? We're looking for those numbers. We're looking for those metrics. We're looking for someone who can actually say, these were my responsibilities, but really these were my accomplishments, and showing percentages of improvement or return on investment or return on ad spend in the case of digital advertising. Those are the key things that really kind of get our attention as far as standing out as what's a winning candidate or someone that you just don't see the performance on there.
Actually, I want to piggyback on that, because I feel like on LinkedIn and in people's resumes, they often focus on what they're in charge of or responsible for, which is really not like, yes, I want to know, but I really want to know the outcome, right? What did you author? We have a client who said, Liz, I'm not looking for a steward. I'm looking for an author. Well, in order to be an author, you have to stick around long enough to actually, see something through. But so on your LinkedIn and your resume, be sure that you're really highlighting your outcomes. If you weren't there at that time, it wouldn't have happened, kind of stuff.
And then the caveat to that is, marketing is a group effort for a lot of people. So you take ownership of some metrics, and it better be real, or find a way to say it where you're contributing to the process. So that's just the sort of a dilemma when you're putting that on your resume. I totally agree with it's metrics, data, MarTech stacks, through and through for our clients who are, 80% subscription focused.
Right. So this sounds a lot like if you had experience or your concentration or you had a lot of background in brand marketing, you're sort of out of luck, right? Because how do you measure that? And what skills are you saying you have?
Well, I think at least from a marketing standpoint, there are three kind of planks, and it used to be people would grow up in this silo of marketing and they would stay in it. There's brand marketing, there's product marketing, and now there was, direct and now digital performance marketing, whatever we want to call it. We look for hybrids. So it's very hard to find someone who's fluent in all three. And I think that's an unrealistic expectation, and we convey that to our clients. I look for folks who are fluent in two and conversant in one. And obviously, depending on where you are in your career arc, if you only have 8 to 10 years of experience, maybe you're only fluent in one of those things. But make sure your next role is going to give you depth and fluency in one of the others.
And then, the way you said that, by the way, like fluent and conversational.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one other thing related to brand, I mean, in some ways, not say brand is dead, because it's not, but in the worlds of like professional services, for example, or that's probably the best one. Creating content that's kind of helped shape brands today, having eminence in the market by having outstanding content to show that you are really the tops in the industry. And that means everything for a brand if people understand who you are and what you do.
Well, sir, a door you just opened to something else. Content, one now can create pretty easily with generative AI platforms. So AI and marketing, what has that done? I know what it's done to our job internally. What has it done to what clients are looking for, and how is it affecting what you're seeing? Is there like AI new skills that are being required? AI fluency? AI, do you need to be conversational in AI?
100%, no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. But if any of us have experienced the quality of the writing from, a chat GPT, they better not be using that as their only way to generate content for a company. It can be a starting point. It can be a guide to make sure nothing is missed, but and it can really, I definitely see with a number of the younger people that I work with, they are amazing when it comes to, just getting things done quickly, using generative AI as a starting point. But yeah, it's something that people need to be aware of, because it's here and it's moving fast.
It actually puts more emphasis on the other parts of the job, which is really
Mhm.
critical analysis of, the whole parts of the process. Let Chat GPT do the easy stuff, but bring your brain and your analytical skills to that are more important.
And I would also, oh, go ahead,
No,
Liz.
you go, Ashley, go.
I was just going to say, from an in-house sort of lens on that as well, it really does depend on the organization as to how they utilize AI. I know here at Danone, we very much are aware of it. We're incorporating it into different areas of our business. But for us, with our company culture and our values, where one of them accentuates humanism, there will always be a human eye as part of that initial application or resume review process. Yes, AI is a tool to help us do our jobs better, but it is not a robot looking at your application and resume and ultimately making that decision. A human is very much involved within that process. And I think that can be worrisome for some candidates where they feel like that may ultimately be what is offered in the market right now. But I think doing your due diligence on an organization to understand their approach on that, however you can through their website or talking to recruiters, will give you a good sense as to how to proceed when it comes to that sort of piece with AI. Liz?
And yeah, I also think, AI hasn't been around that long for anyone to be expert in it, whether you're on the client side or as a candidate. And so showing kind of this flexible curiosity in your past history, listen, I didn't know anything about this and I learned, or here's how I brought in new intelligence, and having a conversation around, to Ashley's point, where is this organization as it relates to thinking about codifying how they feel about AI? And, here's how I would approach helping in that journey, because everyone's like, we're right at the beginning of the walk on AI for most part.
Yeah. And for a lot of us that were through the sort of World Wide Web marketing revolution,
Same idea.
90s, it
Exactly.
feels very familiar, right? It's like, here we
Yeah.
go. We don't really know where it's going to end up. We know it's important. And certainly at our organization, we're a tech company, we're using AI so deeply in every aspect of marketing, from audience segmentation and targeting and to writing sales emails, and actually even using it now. The technology to do voiceovers for videos is so exceptional, you can't tell the difference. Video production is more and more AI generated, and it's amazing how quickly it's evolved in just a year and a half since,
So,
LLMs came out.
so two things. One, back in the 2008, I put in the first heads of global social media at companies, right? And Brandweek came and interviewed me and said, "Oh, you must have 1 million of these jobs." I said, "No, and I don't want 1 million of these jobs." The reason was not because I didn't believe in it, but because we knew that social media was going to be part of everybody's job moving forward. It wasn't just a marketing tool, but it was going to be integrated into, customer service and market research and lots of different areas. So same thing with AI. One of my partners, Tony Lang, just put out a 4-part series. You can see it on LinkedIn. And it's all about, do you need a chief generative AI officer at a company now? And, companies may be hiring those people now, but again, it's going to be part of our everyday lives. We all know how to do math to a certain extent, but our calculator is really super helpful. And that's how I feel like AI is moving today. It's going to be that integrated into, what we do.
That's a great analogy, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's a passing fad. It's like chief digital officers were so big for a while and then they went away because everything digital is part of everything.
Right.
And it's going to be the same trend here.
Well, and this is an interesting Uber discussion too, which is this like specialization versus like a more generalized horizontal base of knowledge for a marketer. Just as you had like people who are, I'm a social media marketer, right? Which to me always sounded like I'm a print marketer. It's like it's a channel. But to what you were saying earlier, where I think a lot of jobs seem to want a very deep and narrow skill set in one particular type of, say, growth marketing. What is that balance that you're seeing in both in terms of what clients are looking for and what candidates have? How much of it is siloed deep expertise in an area versus sort of conversational fluency or conversationalness in a lot of different areas of marketing?
So I'll chip in there. I think that depends on where you are in your career. Obviously the less senior, you're going to be more siloed in the size of your organization. So for instance, when someone's thinking about going, I don't know, I'm making this up, a B2B role at IBM, I would say that's fine, but understand you're just going to play in this specific sandbox. They're so big. They have hundreds and hundreds of marketers. They can afford to just stand up a silo focused on, I don't know, social metrics or whatnot. Whereas if you go to a smaller organization, you'll have more opportunity. It'll be less organized, but you'll have more opportunity to work across more integrated marketing. And obviously, and then the other thing is, if let's say you've got 8 years experience and you have 15, no one's going to be managing your career. They're just going to pull you for your expertise. So you really have to be careful that you don't get stuck in the silo that you started in, and that you kind of, the next role you build, but you pivot from that silo, if that makes sense.
That's an important point because things are fluid. And so email marketing or event marketing or digital marketing can be really hot at one particular time or in one sector. And if you're that narrow, you're really limited. So I'm always a fan of a varied portfolio of skills as much as possible, but there is always, a center lane that clients are looking for.
I'd love to, let's shift gears a little bit to how candidates should work with you. And I know there's a lot of mystery there. I think a lot of us aren't sure, like, how often are we supposed to reach out and contact you? What do you want to know about us? Is it just about when you have a position, you'll talk to me, or am I supposed to talk to you? What's the right relationship?
I would say from my lens, in general, it doesn't always hurt to just be generally networking, right? Whether you need a job or you don't need a job, just reaching out to different folks and maybe spending like 10, 15 minutes in like a coffee chat, understanding like if it is with a recruiter, what opportunities do you currently have open? Like, what do you perceive opening up in the future? Do you think I could be someone to be considered? Being able to, of course, have those conversations, I think, is critical. If you can, of course, get in front of a recruiter to do that. Some of us are a little bit busier than others, but maybe we do have the time to do that. I know that that's something that I take importance in doing as part of my day-to-day. But I would say in general, if you do end up getting into a process for a role, we know that you are eager to find out updates. We are just as eager as you to also know what those updates are to move things forward, and really land some great talent within an organization. I will say that I do my best to either update someone with, of course, an update, or at least let them know I will get back to you by this date. If you don't hear from me, of course, by that time, please, I would encourage you to reach out and follow up to check in. But the tendency for candidates to let their eagerness shine a little bit brighter and maybe reach out every day can be tough for some of us just because of what we have going on. So we understand, again, you're looking for updates. We want them just as much as you do and are working in our best way to make sure that we get those updates in a timely fashion. just some 2 cents there.
I have some strong and possibly unique views about this. I tell candidates, email me anytime. I may not respond right away. If it's really important and you have a question about something, even another opportunity that I'm not handling with you, just tell me it's time sensitive and I will respond. I know how antsy people are when they're looking for a job, and it's kind of never a problem if they email me because I might forget about them about a search. There's a vast universe of people. So the one thing you, of course, don't want to do is pick up the phone and call the recruiter, certainly all the time, or just phone calls are intrusive anyway. And I'm finding a lot of texting right now. If you get into a texting relationship, it's a lot of texts, and I just can't respond by text because it takes too long. And so to check in by text feels intrusive for me. And so, but don't be bashful, and please don't take it personally. I mean, there's so many people looking for feedback and input, and there are only so many hours in a day, and I work probably 20 hours a day. So I beg people, please, if I haven't responded, don't take it personally. Just write again, and I'll be there because I care about the reaction on the other side. But
And I think by your midpoint in your career, let's say your mid-30s, you should have 3 to 4 recruiters that you know you well and you have a relationship. And ideally, you've built that relationship ahead of a need. It's very time consuming and tricky to all of a sudden need the recruiting community and not have those, relationships in place. And I use that word relationship very deliberately because I look at it as a two-way street. I call candidates for references. I want them to tell me what they really think, and in return, if they need something, I'm going to call them or text them or email them, whatever the format may be. But ask your network, who do you really value? Who is not a transactional recruiter that can help me with career advice? And then ask that person from your network to make that introduction and do it way ahead of you needing that.
And it's okay to work with several recruiters, as you say. Like sometimes people actually don't know that, but yeah, build good, strong relationships.
Yeah, as you get to know recruiters as well, find out, what is the volume of work that they do in your specific area, so are you really focusing on the right person? So, for me, we typically work at the C-suite C-1 level. We really don't go even very much VP unless VP is the top role within an organization from a marketing perspective. Definitely don't really do director, senior director at all. So the number of searches that I'm probably going to do that are going to be relevant to someone, it's a numbers game. It's so, have a sense of what that looks like so you can be clear that you're channeling your energies in the right direction and aligning yourself with the people that, are have the highest probability of having potential roles that could be appropriate for you.
How do you all find candidates? And what are things that candidates should do to, I guess, be seen or understood what their value is? I've seen people set up very elaborate personal websites. Some people are very into publishing. Other people seem to almost have a PR agency working for them. I see them in the press so often. What is it do you do? And I'm curious also, I guess, how you all see those, I'll call them celebrity CMOs, the ones who are on every panel and, we know who they are, but are they people who you think of when you're looking for a job? How do you source candidates?
Well, Liz talked about this earlier, like making sure your LinkedIn profile is robust. So when I say robust, it's almost like having it SEO'd, it should almost look as deep as your resume to have keywords, responsibilities, and accomplishments, so those are the things that a recruiter is going to be searching for that's going to allow you to come up in a search. So that's one. Two, I appreciate, and again, this is just my opinion, I like both a functional and chronological resume in, combined, so I can really see, at the top, you know, a good sense of what this person's core skill set is. And then from there, you know, I look at it chronologically from, you know, how they progressed and how they built their career. And then, you know, being active, you know, in terms of other activities and organizations outside of your company is really helpful, because it helps build a network and gets more people to refer you to people like us as we're networking in the market to identify the best candidates for our searches.
Yeah, and I would say I talk to probably 600 marketers a year and have done that for almost 20 years. So while we by no means know everybody and we have our own database, we're probably 1 to 2 degrees of separation from most folks that we want to connect with. And every time we kick off a search, we do a lot of upfront work with our clients. I would say half of the first slate of candidates, 4 to 6 candidates, we already know. And the other half we've gotten to know, because every search is kind of distinct. So you got to really hit the market to make sure you're flushing out exactly what the brief is. So it's some combination of relationships we already have in place versus, you know, hard work on our part going out to certain profiles, and a strong LinkedIn makes a huge difference. Also, make sure you can talk about yourself and your whole career path in less than 3 minutes. Because I can't tell you how many times I have half an hour increments. I will say to every single person I talk to, we've got a half an hour together. Why don't you spend the first 10 minutes telling me about yourself? 95% of the time, the candidate takes 25 minutes doing it, or the whole time. And these are really senior people. And now they've just completely blown it, because we haven't talked about the here and now and today. And I actually don't think they have good executive functioning skills, because they can't weave a tight narrative. So make sure you show up in a very deliberate way. And then Peter, on your question, I would say less than 50% of the time, those folks, those famous CMOs, would be interesting to us. That is a whole business of people. There are a lot of people that go out there and they just run that circuit. You know, I don't know what's happening at the office.
Yeah, I literally have had clients tell me, listen, we do not want someone here. We don't want to hire someone who's looking to become, you know, a star based
Right.
on our
Yeah.
brand. We
It's-
want someone to just come in and do the work and be under the radar if possible.
Exactly.
That's more important to us.
I'd like to sit on one of those panels, though, just saying. I'd love to be a part of what those folks have to say, but I don't necessarily want them to be with my company per se.
Yeah.
How many times does a client say, I don't want somebody's own personal brand to be the priority? It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so antithetical to what they're looking for. And just to support a couple of things that you said, Liz, too, we often just describe the search process very simply as database search, meaning everyone that you've come in contact for in 30 years, which I've been doing, LinkedIn searches for new people that fit the specs, and then sourcing, calling key individuals who are in positions who might know terrific talent. So it just all boils together, and you end up with several slates of candidates. And again, the LinkedIn profile is key with all the keywords. But I don't know if this is exactly the right time, but I wanted to throw out just one thought that I wanted to share with my fellow panelists beforehand, but didn't. I don't know if they agree with me. But marketers tend to have, in my view, overly done resumes. You know, they've gone to resume services. It's overly done with design and packaging and enormous boldface everywhere. And for me, that is a detraction. When I see, they're marketers, so I understand why they're doing that. But I don't know if anyone has.
I'm okay with it as long as it's interesting, right?
Yeah,
really well
yeah.
done.
Yeah, I agree with you, Liz, but in Ashley's world, I guarantee that when she goes to upload that resume, it does not upload. The OCR is just destroyed based on logos and all sorts of things that people try and do to make creative. We may not have that situation with our applicant tracking system. So, But yeah, I can tell you in corporate America that I hear that all the time. My
Mhm.
recruiter friends, they're like, what a disaster. Don't do it. Have a
Yeah.
simplified resume.
And
I
it doesn't
love that
feel
all
as
of you,
authentic.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I love that all of you utilize Canva and you get in there and you make these beautiful resumes. I do appreciate that. But at the end of the day, to your point, Karen, that sometimes can distract from really what the core purpose of that CV needs to be.
And your databases that you mentioned, how do candidates get resumes? I've seen their services. I can't remember the name of it, but one was pitched that says like they then feed all the resume databases at the big recruiting firms. Are those real deals for candidates? Is that what's the infrastructure of?
Our database, you only get into our database if we have a conversation, if we've met you.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so, and it's,
really? Even
yeah,
if you come in
so
over the transom and you don't have a conversation, they don't get entered?
no, because it's just, I feel like, you know, the database is the filter for you really being part of the Jewel network. And we've had a half an hour conversation. We have our own data codes that we put against each candidate. So we kind of organize them across the marketing spectrum, obviously our notes. But that's how we do it.
So the relationship really matters,
Wow.
Yeah.
and hence the
Nice.
real
Because
value that
I
you're
could just
providing.
look at you on LinkedIn and I will. So, but if you're in my database, you know, our database, we really have started a conversation.
That's fantastic. Well, so Ruth, I don't know if you want to open up the microphones generally, and we could take any questions. We have 56 people here.
Yes, they all have to just unmute themselves when they want to speak. So maybe if they click the icon to raise their hand or something, so not everybody's talking at once, then you can just let them know when to go, or I can let them know. Nana, if you wouldn't mind, you raised your hand, you can unmute yourself.
And you go on camera if you can too, and we'll say hello to our. There you are.
Okay.
Hi.
There he is.
Hello,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Please, I have a question. If there's a job that the required experience is more than the number of years that the applicant has, what do you suggest they do?
So should a candidate apply or work towards a job that has higher specs than they actually have in experience?
Yes, please.
Is
I
that
would
to
s-
everyone or is that just to Liz? Did you?
Just to the panel.
Oh, to the panel. So it depends on it. It depends. So sometimes those years, you know, if the person is far more junior than the level, then you know that can be an issue. But if the number of years in a specific skill set is in question, that's something that you know someone can continue to grow in and develop in, and that might be okay. So it really again depends on the situation and how far away you are from those years, because requirements are changing all the time and companies are being more and more flexible as the candidate pool dictates, you know, what they're seeing in the market of qualified and interested candidates.
Yeah, and I would say sometimes there's a search for a very senior person, but they happen to need the person underneath that too. So what is it, if you have the time and ability to do it, you know, does it hurt? No, as long as you show that you are not misunderstanding, you know, what is being asked for in the job.
Right.
Great question. Then we're going to go to Emma. She was next. College. I hear a lot of, particularly among tech firms, that they're starting to like turn their attention away from a person's like educational pedigree and more towards maybe skill sets. Are you seeing that at all? Has there been a de-emphasis in what school you went to?
Not at a senior level, not yet.
Yeah.
Maybe when we do creative recruiting, like we just put in the head of creative for Lululemon, and there were some candidates in the mix that didn't go to university. And that would have been, but they went to ad school, you know, that, you know, put their book together. There's more flexibility there.
Yeah, we haven't seen that flexibility yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Same.
All right, good to know, because I have two kids in college right now.
Keep them going,
And
Peter.
there's the MBA. I mean, a lot of clients still ask for an MBA.
They
Yeah.
still ask for an MBA. Emma, what's your question for the panel?
Hi everyone. I just graduated in May and I was curious what advice you guys have for someone who's looking to get into their first marketing role.
I'll start. So, Emma, first and foremost, congratulations. That's a very exciting chapter of your life that you just completed. Welcome to the real world. As far as some advice that I would provide is if you have the ability to reach out to any sort of early talent sort of managers, I think that's a great first place to start because they have a sense of like what roles could benefit someone, coming straight out of school. Especially if you maybe have plans to continue on in your education, let's say, and get like a master's degree, like there are internships at Danone for MBAs. So I think that's a great starting point. I would also say it doesn't hurt to utilize your LinkedIn to reach out to different folks within organizations that you may be interested in. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, if you can try to set up a quick 10-15 minute coffee chat, not necessarily to even ask about roles, but just ask someone like, how did you get into the role that you currently sit in?
Right.
What advice would you give for someone like myself who maybe wants to be in that sort of role? I think that could be super beneficial. Those are kind of the two initial ones that pop up in my mind.
Yeah. Emma, one other thing is that I have kids similar age to you, and they utilize the alumni of their university significantly. They found people at the companies that they were most interested in. They had conversations, they learned a lot about the organizations, and it helped them tremendously once they were able to get interviews. And if you hit it off with one of these alumni, you never know. They may say, hey, we have some openings here, and they really like you. So building that relationship, but having that commonality of, graduating from the same university would be is a great starting point.
Definitely. Thank you.
I think the first job is a tricky one to get, and because you need to break into an environment you're not a part of, and so going for that warm lead. And I actually have a question for Ashley. When
Sure.
you guys, for an entry-level role, how many resumes are you getting? I don't know if you posted online. How many resumes are you getting for that entry-level role typically?
Yeah, I mean, it can depend on the role, but I know when I've posted recently, like I can get 300 applications probably in like the first 2 days. So it's a huge outreach from folks looking for opportunities at that level.
And so I think the goal is to get to the top of the pile.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is either, someone in Ashley's organization sends her a quick email like, hey, so-and-so applied, will you check her out? All of a sudden, Emma, you've gone from, 260 to number one because Ashley's going to, do that on behalf of, an office relationship and a colleague.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Emma.
Absolutely.
All right, Pooja, welcome.
Hi, guys. Hey, thank you. So I'm a person who has about 15 years of experience in marketing. I'm looking for my next opportunity. One thing while I've been applying, one thing I see is a lot of companies are now using AI to even read the resume. And I don't even know if my resume is AI friendly. So what are your thoughts about it? And, have you experienced something like this? What is your advice with that?
On our side, as a recruiting firm, we're not using AI to evaluate any resumes. I've heard actually some of the AI is being used less on the resume evaluation, more on like the higher view interviews that you may have as companies do pre-screening. They use a lot of AI to kind of determine who should move forward. But that's the only area that I've seen so far.
Same, we're not using it, we're mostly on that C-suite level. So we're not going to use AI for that. My kids who are in college, they do get, higher screened via AI somehow. But I have a colleague who calls AI average intelligence. And so, how is that AI knowing, what's special about this person? I don't know.
And
Right.
Pooja, just from in-house, like I mentioned earlier, Ashley Shea is still looking at your resume. So you can rest assured that at least for our organization, there's still that human that's looking through. Could that change in the future? Potentially. At this point, that's not the direction we see talent acquisition going in. But again, doing your research on an organization upfront to see how they potentially incorporate AI will give you a better sense of, is a robot involved in that, or is it someone like an Ashley who's looking out for you?
Thank you.
Ashley's looking out for you.
Always.
All right, Craig, hi. Welcome to the event.
Hi, thank you. Elizabeth kind of gave a little bit of an answer to this, but I relocated from the UK last year, so I don't have the network and the people to follow up maybe my application. So I'm just wondering if you've got any advice of, with the lack of a network, how I can maybe make some inroads to get further down the process.
Well, I mean, we always network or no when someone launches a active search. I think it's this almost snowball volume game where you want to have as many conversations as possible, whether it's a real job, a colleague, a candidate, somebody's neighbor. And so if you don't have that within your immediate, US based network, then it's going to things like this or panels or showing up to conferences. You really have to kind of beat the street a little bit to start to make those connections. I had one executive call it a curiosity tour. I'm going on a curiosity tour and I'm going to try to talk to as many people in the next 3 to 4 months as I think about what I want to do next. And if you do, so I will say to candidates in their early search, you want to be talking about 8 people a week. And if you do that for 5 or 6 weeks, that will start to, hopefully result in additional conversations and with real job opportunities. But it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, no, definitely. I am finding that even getting to talk to recruiters at agencies, I'm not getting past the initial submit your resume stage. And I've got experience, 10 to 15 years. And I do have to admit, I'm starting to get more interviews over the last 2 or 3 months compared to maybe the last 4 or 5 before that. But there's still hurdles even to get to speak to recruiters to start the curiosity tour, I'm finding.
Yeah, well, what's tricky about that is because you're senior and you're starting from scratch on the relationship, all of a sudden, and you don't have the warm handoff. Like I'll probably get 50 outreaches a week of people that want to connect. And our rule is we'll talk to everybody who reaches out to us, but that's a lot of time. So you could be 2 months out before we have a conversation.
Yeah.
I actually don't think the recruiter path is the way to go.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's all about networking. There's so many events that you can go to, whether you're in fintech or media or healthcare. And of course, some of those are expensive, but if you can find something that is less so, it's the old networking game.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to take up too much time, but I have looked at places like Eventbrite and places like that, to try and find those. And some of them are very expensive and they're a bit prohibitive. Is there anything you could recommend just where else I could look and I'll do the research?
The AMA.
Yeah, okay.
That's really true. Thanks for the plug.
Well, doesn't Adweek still have a great conference in September? Maybe the Ad Council.
And Ad Age.
Okay.
Reagan's a big client of ours for marketers.
Right. Yeah. Association of National Advertisers is fantastic. In October, they have the Masters of Marketing Conference in Orlando. It's a target-rich environment. Less agencies, though, more brands. There was Adweek New York every September. So
Even
yeah.
4As, I think does a lot of, that's the agency side forum. It's probably less expensive or more kind of open opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Great. Sarah. Are you there, Sarah?
Hi, thank you. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm mid senior level, and I'm looking at jobs all over LinkedIn, which is of course an endless pursuit. And I'm finding, I know you touched on this a little in the beginning, but that a lot of the marketing roles list a really wide array of areas of expertise. So they'll want you to do growth marketing and social media strategy, and also be a content creator and personally know a bunch of influencers and just these very big roles. And I can understand it because it's nice to hire someone with a lot of enthusiasm at a sort of lower level and salary point, and get them in the door to be excited about the work. But I guess from my perspective, I just wonder, how do you put your best foot forward and make them feel confident in your skills while also addressing the very real fact that you're not going to be an expert in all of those things?
And I might add and rephrase that as I say into the panel. Are you seeing a lot of, again, you guys are senior level executive recruiters, so this doesn't happen for your jobs, but on LinkedIn, how much of that are just like fishing expeditions where they're just like throwing something out, maybe not a real job, or they don't know what the job spec should be, so they're just looking for everything?
I actually think it's just a bad brief. It's written by someone that doesn't understand the role, and that makes for a really lousy search experience. Either the hiring manager hasn't gone deep enough with whoever the talent acquisition person is on the brief, and they have just put the marketing kitchen sink in a brief. And I would like run, not walk away from that opportunity. I wouldn't even pursue it, because even if you get in the mix, what it says is they haven't thought thoughtfully enough about what the focus of the role is. And now you're going to be in this churn as they meet candidates to try to figure out what they want.
Or as we discussed earlier, a lot of people just don't understand marketing. So at the highest of levels, they don't really know. It's not that they're not even putting it together well, they just don't understand it. And you have to it's trial and error to see if it's going to work for you.
That sounds.
Yeah, thank you. The churn is very real because, of course, then it takes a while for them to make a decision about who to hire. So that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. All right, last question. Is it Hasrat?
Yes, that's correct. Hi, thank
Hi.
you. So my question is more related to networking, and I know you guys touched on this before on how maintaining a relationship with a recruiter needs to be more than just transactional. So could you give more tips on how we can like foster those relationships or make sure they're more long term? Are there like any conversation starters we can use in order to like keep in touch with a recruiter?
I like to tell candidates, and I mentioned this to the panel earlier when we connected, you want to kind of be in a dating relationship with a recruiter. And what I mean by that is you want to reach out to them when, you obviously want some updates, and hopefully they get back to you. The way that I approach it with candidates, if I don't necessarily hear from someone that maybe I've established a relationship with, is I try to do it based on seasons. And if I have more time in between, then of course I will reach out. But I find, we're coming into summer, right? The summer solstice is approaching at the end of June. It's a great time to check in with people to see what their summer plans are and get a sense of what they got going on, through the remainder of their summer. Just talking about personal life there, right? We're not really getting into like, what's your job search? And like, how are you interviewing? That will eventually come up, which is great. But I think that also isn't the main component of what we're doing here. It's to get to know someone a bit more on that somewhat personal level. So that's what I have found is looking at your relationship with a recruiter, almost like a dating relationship where I want to hear from you and you want to hear from me, someone on a consistent basis.
But no
depending-
stalking. No
No
stalking.
stalking. No, we don't want
That's
that.
bad dating.
Or ghosting. We don't want that either.
Exactly.
I know a lot of candidates get that from recruiters. They end up getting ghosted, but sometimes recruiters get ghosted from candidates too. And we're left wondering, what did I do? But that would be my advice. Go into it kind of like that sort of metaphor there, doing something that works for your schedule. For me, it's like seasonal, checking in with folks, checking with those recruiters. Does that help answer that question a bit?
It does. Thank you.
Awesome. And anything, of course, anyone else to
I
add?
have
Yeah.
two other things to add to that. We always love someone, if they're called for an opportunity, it's not right for them, to always say, let me go through my network and see if I know someone who is right. It may or may not be right, but just saying that the effort is really great. And the other thing that happens, and again, maybe this is just me, but you actually get a job. You're working with several recruiters, as we've seen, get a job, and you don't update the recruiter that you've established a relationship with now. And like, sort of say, oh my God, I'm actually worried about the person that I was trying to help, that is trying to find a job, even though there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these people. I actually worry about, I don't have the right job for them. I wish I did. And it means so much when you say, I got an opportunity. Thank you so much for all you did, even though we weren't instrumental in that hire, but it's one less person to worry about. So you may not think that we're thinking about the masses of people that we've interviewed and would love to help, but sometimes we do. Not Elizabeth, is at a different level, but we work at director all the way to CMO. So, it's just.
Yeah. I know everyone here cares a lot more than I think candidates often realize.
Right.
Your job is based on having good relationships, both with your clients and the candidates. And we all want to make the best, match and get everybody happy. I'm going to leave it on that note and thank the panel, Elizabeth, Ashley, Karen, and Matt. Thank you for spending an hour of your day with us and with the people here. And to everybody else listening in, visit the AMA New York website for future events. We'd love to see you, be here and network with everybody. And on that note, have a great rest of the week and a good summer.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Peter. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.